Hello everyone and welcome back to another video of English No Big Deal. My name is David.
And I'm Maddie.
In today's video, we're gonna do part 2 of the 15 most important phrases for Conversation 19 about tax season. But before we do that, as usual, we're gonna ask Maddie about the importance or the significance of this conversation. So Maddie, can you tell them more about that, please?
This conversation is important because these phrases not only have to do with tax season, but you can also use them in a variety of situations as well. As we're talking about each phrase, be sure to follow along. That way these phrases are embedded deeper in your head. Now after this video, go back to the conversation and check your understanding. It's really important to make sure that you know exactly what is going on in the conversation if you would like to use some of these phrases and vocabulary on your own in daily conversation. And if you don't want to miss out on the next video, be sure to subscribe to our channel and click that bell icon so you're notified whenever we upload another video. Right, now let's get into the main content of this video.
Number 1. The sooner you do something, the sooner something happens.
It's just the beginning of tax season. Why are you in such a hurry?
Well, the sooner I finish filing my taxes, the sooner I can get my tax return.
Now, the pronunciation for this phrase is very simple and is mainly about the word sooner. So when you are pronouncing the word sooner, make sure you don't turn its vowel into the short O sound and don't say sooner. Sooner. It's wrong because it's a straight up oo sound. So you have to say sooner. Sooner. And don't ever forget to roll your tongue in order to make that R sound at the end of this word very clear and distinct. Now say the whole phrase with me one more time. The sooner you do something, the sooner something happens. The sooner you do something, the sooner something happens.
This phrase is used to say that if you do something soon, then something else can happen. We use this phrase to let the other person know that an action has to be taken first in order to get the desired results or thing. You can replace the word sooner with earlier, saying, the earlier you do something, the earlier something happens. Maddie said in the conversation, the sooner I file my taxes, the sooner I can get my tax returns. So filing taxes is the action that Maddie has to do first, and then the desired results or the thing that she wants is her tax returns. Giving you guys some examples. The first one, the sooner you finish your chores, the sooner you can get out of the house. So the thing that has to happen first, or the action that has to come, is finishing your chores. And then you can get the desired results, and that is getting out of the house.
I think we have a lot of expressions or ways or structures in order to talk about conditionals, but this one will give you guys more of that variety of ways or expressions in order to go about conditionals as well. Alright, let's move on to the second example for this phrase. The sooner you create your resume, the sooner you can apply for jobs. That means in order to be able to apply for jobs, the first thing you have to do is to finish creating your resume. And as long as you have the resume in hand, then you can actually go around and go meet your employers in order to hand in the resume to apply for jobs.
Number 2, well before something happens.
So if anything goes wrong or they need me to provide any extra information, I can have everything submitted well before tax season is over.
The first word we're going to concentrate on is the word well. Well. Be sure that that O sound at the end is really clear. To make it clear, be sure you're sticking your tongue up to the top of your mouth. Oh, well. well. And for the second word, before, make sure that that sound is really clear. Don't skip it or drop it. Don't say before, no. Before. Now say this whole thing with me one more time. Well before something happens. Well before something happens.
The phrase well before actually indicates that there's a long time or a lot of time before something else is done or completed. It's not shortly before it's done or completed, but it has to be a long time or well before it's happened or it's done or completed. Just like how Maddie mentioned in the conversation, she had to file taxes well before tax season is over. That means it's not shortly before it's over, but she had to complete filing her taxes for both the countries, Canada and the US, well before tax season is over. Now, to give you guys a much better understanding of how to use this phrase, let us give you some more examples. And the first one is, I want to be settled in my home and my job well before we have children. That means in order to have children, it's going to be happening in the near future, but I would like to actually be settled in my new job, in my new home, well before doing that. Because I'm a responsible father, and so I want to be able to take care of my children. And in order to do that, being settled in my job and my home is the necessary thing that I have to complete before having kids.
And the second example, even though some of my favorite movies were filmed well before I was born, I find that they're still some of the best movies to date. So what that means is the movies I love, or my favorite movies, were filmed or taken well before or long before I was born. And they beat some of the movies that come out now. So even though movies now are really good with their special effects, maybe the filming equipment, and they look really good on the screen, but maybe they're just not as good as some of the ones that were filmed long before I was born. Maybe I love the storyline a lot more, or there's just something about them that makes me love them more than the movies that come out now.
Number 3, pricey.
It does get pretty pricey, but in my opinion, it's better to be safe than sorry.
This word is pretty easy to pronounce. There are just 2 syllables for this word. And the first syllable starts with a P sound, so don't ever turn it into a B sound and say bri. Bri is wrong, so pry. And the second syllable of this word is C. It ends with that long E sound, and don't ever turn it into the short A sound and say se. Se is not correct. So now say this whole word with me one more time. Pricey.
The word pricey itself means costly or expensive. And if you've kept up with all of our previous part 2 videos, then you'll know that we also taught the phrases something is a bit up there and high priced. And these words are related to the word pricey. One thing to remember is that the word pricey is an adjective, so it's used to describe how expensive or costly something is. In the conversation, Maddie mentioned that it does get pretty pricey to file taxes for both Canada and the US. So all that means is it can get pretty costly or is pretty expensive to file taxes in both countries. It's time for the examples. The first one, during the summer, plane tickets can get pretty pricey because everybody is traveling for their holidays. So, of course, summertime is a really high traffic time. A lot of people want to travel far away and go to maybe a beach or someplace else for their holiday. And that is why the companies raise the prices for the plane tickets so that they can make a good profit off of them. So that's why it is pretty pricey to buy a plane ticket during the summer.
And of course, it has to be in the summertime, because in the summertime, people will have more time to get off from work, or their children are not attending any school or classes. So it's a perfect time for families to go on holidays. And that is the reason why a lot of airlines are jacking up the prices for their air tickets, so they become a little pricey. Now, let's move on to the second example. Many opulent people buy pricey designer items, not because they're long-lasting, but because they are reflective of their wealth. Everybody knows that designer clothes or items are really expensive or costly or pricey. They cost an arm and a leg, but they don't mind spending a lot of money in order to afford them, because buying them and wearing them, and other people will know how wealthy or opulent they are. That's why they are reflective of their wealth.
Some examples of pricey designer wear is Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Air Jordan, and Chanel. You see a lot of people now, and it's kind of like a trend to go to these stores and get some of these items, and it really does show that they are wealthy enough to go and purchase items from these stores. Number 4, it's better to be safe than sorry, or better safe than sorry.
It does get pretty pricey, but in my opinion, it's better to be safe than sorry.
For the pronunciation, we're going to concentrate just on the first phrase. And the first word is better, better. Even though it is spelled with a double T, in North American English, we don't say better, better. We'll change that T to a flap D sound and say better, better. And the second pronunciation is to be, to be. If you want to say this phrase faster, then we'll change to ta and say tubby, tubby. Be sure that you're saying it fast enough, because if you do say it slow, it'll sound kind of awkward. So don't say it's better to be, not correct. It's better to be, to be. See how fast I did it? To be, to be. Now the last word is safe, safe. Be sure that that f sound is correct. Don't change it to the v sound. It's a voiceless sound. So safe, safe. For that final f sound, you shouldn't feel any vibrations in your throat. And that's how you know you're making the sound correct. Now say this whole phrase with me one more time. It's better to be safe than sorry. It's better to be safe than sorry.
These phrases are used to say that it is very good to be careful, so you're not going to end up doing something that you might regret later. In the conversation, Maddie said that even though going through a tax specialist is pricey, but it's better safe than sorry. And that means she didn't want to file taxes on her own, because she might have made some mistakes that ultimately made her regret her decisions later. That's why she was being careful and willing to pay extra money to go through a tax specialist, so everything would be fine. To give you more of the idea of how to use these phrases correctly, let us give you some more examples. And the first one is, I always leave my first aid kit and a blanket in my car because it's better safe than sorry. That means if something happens, if there's an injury that happens to me, or if the weather is really cold outside, then at least I have something in my car in order to deal with those circumstances immediately without asking people for help.
It's actually pretty common in Canada to always leave a blanket in your car, especially in the middle of winter, because you never know what can happen. Maybe your car will break down on the side of the road and it doesn't work, so you can't turn it on to get heat. So the only thing to make sure that you're warm enough is to use the blanket that you left in your car. The second example, when riding a scooter or motorcycle, it's a good idea to always wear protective gear because it's better to be safe than sorry. So even though you might ride these things very well and you're good at it already, but you never know what can happen. Maybe somebody else isn't as good of a driver, so you have to always wear protective gear like a helmet, leather jacket, or leather pants because it's better to be safe than sorry. You don't want to end up regretting your decision of not wearing protective gear because, again, you never know what can happen.
Number 5. Be slapped with something.
I don't want to be slapped with a penalty or a fine just because I miscalculated something on my tax forms.
There's only one pronunciation point that you have to be aware of here, and that point is upon the word slapped. Slapped. Because slap, when it is an infinitive verb, it has the P sound at the end, and the P sound is a voiceless consonant. That's why when it has the ed part at the end to be turned into its passive voice or in its past tense, then the ed part is supposed to be pronounced as the T sound. So in this particular situation, we have the word slapped. Slapped. Don't ever say slapped. Slapped is wrong, right? So slapped. Now say the whole phrase with me. Be slapped with something. Be slapped with something. Now if you increase your speed a little bit, then the word slapped is going to be a little bit faster and smoother the way you should say it. So be slapped with something. Be slapped with something. Be slapped with something. Notice that this time I am not pronouncing the pt sound very clearly anymore, but trying to make it smoother and softer. So be slapped with something. Be slapped with something.
If you're slapped with something, that just means that you're punished as a result or a consequence of your actions. Going back to the conversation, Maddie didn't want to be slapped with any penalties or fines. All this means is that she didn't want to have or be punished with any penalties or fines because if she filed her taxes on her own and she miscalculated something or didn't provide the correct information, then the result or the consequences of that is a fine or a penalty. Time for the examples. The first one, if you cheat on a test in college, you will be slapped with a failing grade. This is something that's really commonly said in any college that I attended. They always told us and reminded us that if we ever cheated on a test or an exam, then the punishment we will receive as a result is a failing grade. Some other consequences that could happen is being expelled from the school or even completely failing the course. And it can go on your permanent record that you cheated on a test.
I think in my life, being a student, I've never experienced any of my friends who wanted to cheat on a test, but would be able to walk out of it being totally safe and not being slapped with any punishment afterwards. So if you have an idea of cheating on a test, maybe after knowing more about this one, you shouldn't do that anymore. Alright? So let's move on to the next example. If you miss too much work at your company, then you will first be slapped with a written warning before being sacked. That means that your boss is going to give you a paper or a written document that states very clearly that you've been missing a lot of work, that you've been slacking off, and that kind of behavior is not tolerated in the company. That's why if you do it or continue doing it, then your boss is going to have no choice but sacking you. That means you're going to be fired.
So because you were missing too much work, then the consequence or the result of that action is a written warning from the company. And they do this so that they have a record stating that you were already warned because you were missing too much work. So the next step or the next consequence that will come is being sacked or fired from your job. Number 6, a whole other and a whole nother.
Not only that, but it becomes a whole other mess when I have to convert Canadian currency to US currency.
For the first part of the pronunciation, we're going to look at the first phrase and the connecting between whole and other. Now, you can do it two different ways. You can either do the connecting, but some people won't. It just depends on really how you feel. So we're just going to talk about the connecting so that you know how to do it and you can identify it when you hear it. So how it's said is we'll bring that L sound over to other. Whole leather, leather, whole leather. Now for the second phrase, the pronunciation for this, it can be a little difficult going from the O in whole to the N sound in another. So first, when you're doing the sound, your tongue is gonna already be at the top of your mouth. And then going to the word another, you're gonna slightly press your tongue up just a bit more to make that N sound. Whole nother, whole nother. I don't bring my tongue back down and reset for the word another. I keep my tongue at the top of my mouth. A whole nother, whole nother. Now say everything with me one more time. A whole other, a whole other. And the second one, a whole nother, a whole nother.
These phrases are used to add more information to a conversation. Maybe that piece of information is a completely different thing, or it's just a little different compared to the main topic that the conversation was going. So when talking about having to file taxes for both countries, Canada and the US, Maddie said that it is a whole other mess having to convert Canadian currency to US currency. She used this phrase because converting Canadian currency to US currency, even though was a slightly different topic compared to the main topic about filing taxes that David and Maddie were talking about. But since it was still considered as a slightly different topic, that's why Maddie used this phrase in order to shift David's attention a little bit. But at the same time, the topic was still about filing taxes in this particular situation. Now, for these phrases to make more sense, let us give you some more examples so you can practice along with. And the first one is, speaking English every day brings your current skills to a whole nother level. That means speaking English or practicing English every single day, and your skills will be a lot more different compared to how it is right now.
In the second example, finding a new job might be difficult, but changing careers is a whole other story. So that just means that even though finding a new job is difficult, if you plan on changing careers, it's a whole other story because maybe you have to go back to school to get the right degree and certification to switch careers. That's why it's a whole other story or a completely different story.
Number 7, a peace of mind or peace of mind.
So I go to a tax specialist to give me a peace of mind.
There are two pronunciation points you can be aware of here, and the first one is upon the word peace. So the word peace has its vowel as the long E sound, so you say P as in the grain or the food that you eat, P, and then it ends with an S sound, so peas, peas, alright? Don't say piss. Piss is wrong and is a very naughty word, so nobody wants to hear that word. So peas, peas. And then the next word is the word of, and it starts with a vowel sound, so you can link the S at the end of the word peace over to of. You have piece of, piece of. And that is the second point that you have to be aware of when pronouncing this whole phrase. So now let's just say this whole phrase with me one more time. A peace of mind or peace of mind. A peace of mind or peace of mind.
The word peace itself means tranquil or serene. In other words, calm. Now with this phrase, what this means is you feel safe and secure, making you feel calm. In the conversation, Maddie said that she feels when filing her taxes, going to a tax specialist will give her a peace of mind. It makes her feel calm because she feels more secure, like nothing bad is going to happen when she files through a tax specialist because This is their specialty. They know exactly what they're doing. She might not feel so calm and serene if she's trying to file taxes on her own. She might panic thinking, oh my goodness, I don't know what I'm doing. So that's not going to really make her feel secure. That's why going to a tax specialist will give her a peace of mind. Going to the examples, the first one, installing a security system in our home gives me peace of mind, especially when on vacations. So I would always worry and feel a little bit insecure if I didn't have a security system installed. So if I don't feel secure or safe, then of course I'm not calm. And I would probably worry about our house a lot if we went on vacation. So that's why when we install a security system in our home, I have a peace of mind.
Because it's going to give you that full control to make sure that your property is safe and nothing bad is going to happen to it when you are on vacations, right? So you don't want anything bad like a burglary or theft that's going to happen to your house. Or maybe if they happened, then you would have something to actually know what happened and when it happened as well. So you can actually turn the evidence to the police and have them solve the problem for you or catch the person who did it. Okay, let's move on to the next example. It gives me a peace of mind to have $10,000 in my savings account just in case something happens. It is an extremely terrible situation when you have to deal with an emergency or an unexpected situation when you don't have enough money to deal with it, right? That's why when I have $10,000 in my savings account, I feel like it gives me a peace of mind because now I can feel calm, I can feel serene or tranquil, even if an emergency or an unexpected situation that happens to me. Right? Because now I have enough money to deal with any of them.
Maybe one of those unexpected events is your car breaking down. You might not have enough money to fix it if you don't have enough money in your savings account. Because sometimes it can take $3,000 to fix one of the brakes in your car. So that's why you have to have enough money in your savings account in case this happens. Number 8, earnings, salary, income, and dividends.
I don't find a need to go to a tax specialist because there are many sites that can help walk you through all the steps of filing, mainly having to enter your earnings, including your salary and dividends.
Out of all of these words, we're only going to concentrate on 2 for the pronunciation. The first one, salary. Don't mix up this word with the word celery. That's the food that you eat. So make sure that that sound is clear. Don't make it the Say salary. Salary. Now for the last word, dividends. There are 3 d sounds in this word, and you have to make sure you have them all, and especially making that last one really clear. So listen to me as I say this word. Dividends. Dividends. Don't skip any of them. Dividends.
Earnings refer to the amount that you earn from your job, and when this whole amount is topped up with any of the benefits or extra bonuses as well as your pensions from your employment, then this whole amount is called your income. Now, the word salary can be used interchangeably with the word earnings to talk about the amount that you earn from your employment as well. But it's a fixed amount. Let's say you get paid a fixed amount of $3,000 a month. That means $3,000 a month is the fixed amount or a base amount, a base salary that you earn from that job. Or a lot of people will call it a base salary of $3,000 a month. But let's say you get paid hourly or you have a rate of $16 per hour. That means if you work for 1 hour, then the employer is going to give you $16. Then you can't use any of those terms, but having to use the word wage. Wage. So wage is basically the rate that you receive after 1 hour of working for a job. And dividends are the amount that the company gives you based upon their profits when you are one of their shareholders or investors. Very often that company, especially big companies, will make their long-term employees one of their shareholders or investors in order to retain their loyalty and contributions. In the conversation, David said that in order to file their taxes online, they had to enter their earnings, including their salary and their dividends. That means that their job, both of David and Maddie's job, is providing them with a base salary as well as some dividends as well, because they're considered as some kind of investors or shareholders of the company. Now, to clear out the usages for these words, let us give you some additional examples. And the first one is, most university graduates prefer to have a salary-based job rather than a wage-based one. Why? Because they would like to get paid a fixed amount of money after 1 month of working or after a certain period of time of working for that company, rather than receiving the money or the rate for each and every single hour they work for somebody.
The second example, in the US, depending on your total income, you have to pay an average amount of approximately 20% of your income to taxes. So depending on how much you're making or your total income, you'll have to pay a 20% amount of that to taxes.
And when calculating your total income, make sure that you add all of your bonuses, additional benefits, as well as your pensions into your earnings as well to have that topped up amount. Number 9, dependent.
And then the application is going to ask you about the number of dependents.
Just because that's just one word for this section, so the pronunciation is supposed to be very easy, right? So the word dependent, it ends with the T sound. And so when you make it plural, make sure that you have that t sound, right? So dependent. And that's the only pronunciation point that I would like you guys to keep in mind.
A dependent is a person who depends or relies on someone, let's say a guardian or a parent, to provide them with food, shelter, and finance. They depend on them because they can't provide these things for themselves yet. In North America, a dependent is usually a person under 18 years of age, and they can have a part-time job. In the conversation, David mentioned, after entering in all the amounts, Maddie needed to put in the number of dependents in her household. What this means is the number of people that are still depending on her or relying on her to provide them with food, shelter, and finance. Going to the examples, in North America, children 18 years or older usually are no longer deemed as dependent because they are fully legally and financially responsible for themselves and all other aspects of their lives. So they no longer rely on their parents or guardian to provide them those things. They can provide those things for themselves. So they're no longer considered as dependent.
And the second example is, claiming that you have some dependents in your household helps make your tax amount dwindle quite a bit. That means that if you claim that you have some dependents when filing taxes for yourself, then the government is going to know that yes, you still have some people that you have to look after or you have to take care of them legally and financially. That's why instead of asking you for that fixed amount of tax, now they're asking for less. That's why now you pay less taxes and your tax amount dwindles quite a bit.
Number 10, tax withholding and tax return.
And then the application is going to ask you about the number of dependents as well as any withholdings.
We're going to concentrate on one word for the pronunciation, and that is the word withholding. Withholding. The middle of the word can be very difficult for some people to pronounce because we have the th and the sound right next to each other. And you have to make sure that both sounds are pronounced clearly, so don't skip them or drop them. Don't say withholding, withholding, not correct. Withholding, withholding. Also be careful and don't change the th sound to the f sound. You have to make sure to stick your tongue out for the withholding. Withholding. See how I'm doing it? Withholding. Now say all of this one more time with me. Tax withholding and tax return.
Tax withholdings are the amounts that your employer takes away from your regular pay to help you pay taxes to the government. Now, in short, that you don't have to calculate the amounts that you have to make in regular payments for the government to pay for taxes, but your employer or your company will do that for you. However, when it is close to the end of the tax year, you need to file your taxes in order to help the government accurately adjust your tax amount in general or in total based upon your extra information and life circumstances as well. There are often two circumstances that you have to deal with after you file your taxes. The first circumstance is when your already paid amount or withholdings are not enough. So now you have to pay more to the government to help meet that requirement or to help you fulfill that tax or financial obligations to the government. And the second circumstance is when your already paid amount or withholdings are a little bit too much compared to what you need to pay. Then now the government is giving you some money back, and that whole amount is called tax returns. In the conversation, David also mentioned that withholdings are also one piece of the information that you need to provide when filing taxes as well. Alright, let us give you some more examples now. And the first one is, last year when claiming a low-income spouse, I received about $3,000 back for my tax returns. And like I said before, tax returns are the amounts given back to you after the government subtracts the tax amount that you owe them. In this particular example, I said that I received about $3,000 back in my tax returns. Why? Because now my life circumstance changed a little bit since I got a low-income spouse, right? And because of that low-income spouse, now I have more financial responsibility toward my family. And for that, the government just decided to take less money from me for taxes.
The second example, your employer withholds part of your income for taxes because they're legally bound to do it. If they don't do this, then they could be breaking the law or the rules. So that is why they withhold a part of your income for taxes and they give it to the government for you.
Number 11. Pretty painless.
The whole process is pretty painless.
Both of these words have the first consonant as the P sound, so make sure you make the P sound very clear and distinct, and don't turn it into the B sound, so pretty and painless. And the second word, painless, is also the main concentration for this whole phrase's pronunciation. And the first syllable sounds just like how you say the word pain, right? But you gotta understand that the word pain has or contains the vowel as the A sound, not the A sound. So pay as you pay somebody some money, right? Pay, and then you end it with the N sound, pain. And it's totally different compared to when you say straight up with the A sound. So you say pain. It's totally different. Pain and pain. Pain and pain, right? And the second syllable is also the ending syllable of this word, and it's very easy. So less, painless. Now say the whole phrase with me one more time. Pretty painless.
This phrase has nothing to do with physical pain, but it's used in a situation that you feel is extremely difficult or unpleasant, and after receiving some advice from somebody else, they might use the phrase pretty painless to show you that it's not as difficult or unpleasant as what you may think. So perhaps in the conversation, Maddie felt that filing taxes on her own was extremely difficult and pretty unpleasant. And after David gave her some advice about how to file her taxes, some of the phrases that she may see, he said it is pretty painless to file taxes on your own. And the reason he said it is because now, after advising her, he showed her that it's not as difficult or unpleasant as what she thinks, so maybe she'll be able to file taxes on her own later. Going to the examples, the first one, when you take dually notes during classes, studying for the finals is pretty painless. So long as you take really good notes during classes and you're very thorough, making sure that you can clearly identify some of the phrases or terms or things that you may think will be on the exam, then when you look back at them to study for the finals, it's not as difficult or unpleasant as it could be.
And the second example, when you know how to immerse yourself in English, your learning process becomes pretty painless because now you make the most of it. That means you enjoy it more because you can immerse yourself in the language, so you like it very much. And just because you like it very much, your learning process becomes something that's very pleasant, or it's not as difficult or unpleasant that you think it was anymore.
Number 12, overwhelm and overwhelming.
But I have to admit, it is pretty nice to have somebody do all the work for you. I find that if I filed by myself, I would be overwhelmed at all the terms that they use, as well as making sure that I enter in all the correct information and numbers.
The only thing to concentrate on is the in overwhelm and overwhelming. Make sure that it is really clear. Don't skip it or drop it. Don't say overwhelming, overwhelming. No, that's not correct. Overwhelming. And as I already mentioned, to press the O sound correctly, you need to put your tongue at the top of your mouth. Whelming. Overwhelming. Overwhelming. Now say this whole thing with me one more time. Overwhelm, overwhelm, and overwhelming. Overwhelming.
The verb overwhelm is used when something has such a strong emotional effect on somebody that they don't know how to react to that situation. And there are two forms of its adjectives. The first one is overwhelming, that is used to talk about an event or a situation or even an object that can cause that strong emotional effect on somebody. And the second form, it's overwhelmed, is used to talk about the feeling of that person when they have that strong emotion. In the conversation, filing taxes all by herself would be very overwhelming to Maddie. Or in other words, she would feel overwhelmed if she had to file taxes all on her own because of all of the terms that they used and also the amount of information that she had to provide. Now let's come up with some examples. And the first one is, instructions given in steps are less overwhelming to me to follow than abstract ideas. That means step-by-step instructions are not going to cause any strong emotional effect on me. That's why I will be able to react to it accurately and efficiently.
I think a lot of people will feel the same way because when you're doing anything and somebody is just giving you abstract ideas, you might feel it overwhelming, or you might be overwhelmed in that situation because you don't know how to react, you don't know if you might have the right idea, and that is why it can be overwhelming for some people to receive abstract ideas as instructions. Going to the second example, many people feel overwhelmed when it comes to public speaking. So we have a lot of emotions wrapped around the idea or the thought of having to give a speech in public situations or in public speaking. You don't know how to react to the situation. You don't even know how to deal with your emotions. You could be feeling so many emotions at once. And that's why it can be overwhelming for some people, or people may feel overwhelmed.
Number 13, straightforward.
It is all pretty straightforward.
The pronunciation for this word is quite simple, and there are 3 syllables here. The first one is straight. When pronouncing the first syllable for this word, make sure that you have that A sound, straight, as its vowel. Straight. And it ends with the T sound, so straight right there. And most of the time, native speakers don't pronounce the T sound at the end of the syllable very, very clearly. So that's why you should just stop it. So straight instead of saying straight, right? So straight. And the second one and the third one is going to be forward. So while the second one is very easy, the third one can have some pronunciation points that we have to be aware of here. So forward, not only it has the sound as its vowel, and it also has the D sound to end the whole word. So forward. And a lot of people would probably mistake it for the T sound and say forward. Don't ever say it like that. Now let's say this whole word once or maybe twice or 3 times with me before moving on to the usages with Maddie. Straightforward.
If something is straightforward, that means it is clear, easy to understand. There's no way that you could misunderstand or feel that it's confusing. Keep in mind that this adjective can also be used with people and their behavior. So if somebody is straightforward, that just means that they're clear with their intentions. They seem like they're not hiding anything. You know exactly what they are intending to do in a conversation. In the conversation, David referred to the tax filing site as being pretty straightforward. That just means that on the tax filing site, it is very clear. They have easy to understand steps, and completing your tax filing on this site can be very easy. That's why David said that it was pretty straightforward. Going to the examples, the first one, I like straightforward people because they don't seem to have any ulterior motives. So because the person is always pretty honest and clear, and they're easy enough to read, that they're being straightforward about their intentions, then you don't feel like they have any ulterior motives. So they're not looking to gain anything from you. You don't have to worry about if this person is trustworthy or not because they are straightforward.
And for that, you can be a little bit more open when talking with them or sharing your personal information with them as well, because they don't have anything to hide, and most importantly, they're not looking for gaining or getting something from you. Let's move up to the next example. Most people prefer straightforward expressions rather than beating around the bush. And this expression or this sentence is very easy to understand, right? Because straightforward expressions are the expressions that everybody can understand without any further explanations for them. So everybody likes or prefers them because it's very easy for them to understand what other people mean when they are using straightforward expressions rather than beating around the bush. So beating around the bush is just another way to talk about their ideas or opinions, but sometimes people just take way too long to digress in some other topics before getting straight into the main point. So just because nobody wants to waste their time or wait for a long time for other people to get to the main point, that's why a lot of people would just prefer straightforward expressions rather than beating around the bush.
I think a lot of us know people who beat around the bush or talk in circles for so long, and the feeling is very frustrating. So that's why many of us prefer straightforward expressions. People will get to the point very fast, and like David already said, we don't want to waste time listening to people talk in circles or beating around the bush. Number 14, something is a cakewalk.
After doing it by yourself once or twice, it's gonna be just a cakewalk.
For this phrase's pronunciation, we're only going to concentrate on one word, and that is the word cakewalk. Now, there are two k sounds in this word, but be very careful and don't enunciate them too much. Otherwise, it's going to sound very awkward. So don't say cakewalk. That's very awkward to hear and listen to, but also it's difficult to say. So make those K sounds subtle, but still there. So only a little bit of air coming out. Cakewalk, 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 cakewalk. You hear how I'm not dropping them. They're still there, but they're not over enunciated either. So work on controlling the amount of air that is coming out when you say this. Now say this whole thing with me one more time or two more times. Something is a cakewalk. Something is a cakewalk. Cakewalk.
This expression is pretty much similar to the phrase something is a piece of cake because it means that something is very easy for everybody to understand or to do something. In the conversation, David said that after filing your taxes on your own a few times, it was going to become just a cakewalk. That means now you knew all the steps and all the information needed to file your taxes. That's why the whole process would become just a piece of cake or a cakewalk. Or it means it will become very easy for you to do it later on your own. Now, coming up to the examples, and the first one is, no matter how many children you already have, raising a newborn is no cakewalk. That means regardless of how many kids you already had before, now raising a newly born child or baby is not going to be easy. Even though you have already gathered a lot of experiences when raising a lot of children before as well.
Going to the second example, when pursuing a dream or passion, sticking with it through thick and thin is difficult, but giving up is a cakewalk. That just means that it's extremely easy to give up. There's nothing confusing about it. You can always give up when it gets very difficult, but that's not what you always want to do. So of course, you're going to try to stick with it through thick and thin in order to reach your dream or pursue a passion.
And the last one, number 15, to audit something.
And also, if I get audited, the company will handle it, so I have no worries.
The only pronunciation point you have to be aware of here is upon the word audit. So the first syllable of this word is aw. Don't say ow. And the second one has the short E sound, so di, and then it ends with the T sound. So say the whole word with me one more time. Audit, audit. And when you stop the T sound, it's going to be audit, audit. Now the whole phrase is going to be to audit something, to audit something.
To audit something just means to officially assess an account or financial statements of a business or a person. This just happens to make sure that everything is valid, there's nothing illegal going on, or no fraud. In the conversation, audit was used in its passive voice when Maddie said that if she got audited, the company of her tax specialist will handle it so that there's no worries. That just means that her taxes were being officially looked into. They were auditing her to see if there was any fraud or anything that was false, and they also wanted to make sure that she paid everything in full and everything was true. Going to the examples, the first one, when filing taxes, companies are very careful when preparing financial statements and taxes so that when they get audited, they can be stress-free. Now, that just means that they're doing all of this extra preparation to make sure that they have all their ducks in a row, or that everything is very clear in every single financial statement and their taxes, So in case they get audited or officially looked at their accounts and financial statements, they don't have anything to worry about because everything's already there.
And since your example is very straightforward and there's no more explanation needed here, so I'm gonna move on to the second example. So last year, when filing my taxes, it took the CRA a long time in order to audit my account. And this is a true story because the last time when we were staying in Canada for the last year, we gotta file our taxes, and just because our life circumstances changed a little bit about that time and we claimed it when filing our taxes, the Canada Revenue Agency took a long time in order to process that claim and give us the returns back. And since there was an increase in the tax returns that the government had to give us back, that's why they needed to officially assess our filing to make sure that there was no fraud, there was no mis or false information when we filed our taxes as well.
Those are all of the phrases for conversation 19. Now what you need to do is go back to the conversation and check your understanding. This is essential to do to make sure that you understand all of the phrases fully and you know exactly what's going on in the conversation, so that when you go and watch the next video, the 15 questions for this, then you're able to participate in that video as well. We do this kind of video to make sure that you guys have a deeper understanding of everything, and it's a great way to test your listening skills. But you can't test your listening skills if you don't understand everything in the conversation. So that's why after watching this video, go back to it and just rewatch it.
And if you think this video or this type of content is very helpful in your English learning journey, then don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to our channel and turn on that bell notification so you can get notified when we release new videos in the future. And that's it for today's video, and we hope to see you all in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.